and welcome to the Conscious Experience, your channel for transformational insights, perspectives, and empowering ideas to help you navigate everyday moments. Today, I'm here with Mike, and we're tackling a very powerful topic.
Today, we will speak about addictions and all the different forms of addiction. So this has been interesting. We decided on this topic earlier this week, and it's really been on my mind. So we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I just want to kind of preface this experience. Sometimes we may think addiction is for like that person over there somewhere in the corner, like on the street. But actually, I think as we continue to explore this topic, we're going to find that addiction is actually a very natural phenomenon that cuts through the heart of every person in our lives, in the way that we navigate our choices. We're going to see that actually this quality of addiction, which is essentially a quality where we're doing something, but it's not whole, it's not wholehearted, it's not enriching us in a way that our entire being lights up. It really is rampant in every area of your life, from the most happy looking, successful looking people all the way down to like poverty level people. And I'm really excited to really just dive into this and shed some light on this experience.
Awesome. So let's begin where we always start. Let's say, what is addiction, Boris? What do you think addiction is?
Yeah, I think this definition, the definition that I love most about addiction or for addiction is when we are taking an action, to achieve a certain way of feeling, but it has negative consequences and we can't stop. So these components, like we do something, it's compulsive, we can't stop, and it's generating some kind of negative result in our life that we are aware of. I would say that this is the way that I would define addiction. How about you? Anything different comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. So I did look this up on etymology. There's a etymology.com. So they define addiction as to devote or give up oneself. So you're basically giving up yourself to a habit or occupation. So that's an interesting way to phrase it. The way that I came up with the definition is basically an unhealthy habit. And we can talk about healthy habits of addiction as well. But this more so episode focuses on probably the unhealthy habits that strip you of your life force or mana and that take you away from the life that you know you should be living. So that assumes that you are conscious of these addictions, but again, we can talk about unconscious addictions as well. It also has some form of like numbing or escaping element to it. So escaping what? Well, I would say it's the present moment. So people are looking to escape that. Essentially just giving up your power to something else outside of you.
Exactly. Yeah. So these elements, it's outside. We're looking for some kind of salvation or solution outside. It's creating negative results in our life. In that definition, it's saying that basically it's like we know we should be living something else, but we're in this space and we can't stop. There's a compulsive element to it. So yeah, I feel like these are really the pillars of addiction. So in this definition of addiction, it kind of rules out things where there is no negative consequence. For example, maybe you love to read, and it's awesome, and you do a lot of it, and your partner also loves to read, and they like to, but the negative consequence could be is like, even with reading, it's like you're deeply addicted to reading, the rest of your life is going to shambles. Your partner is threatening to leave you because they don't get any attention from you. You are not taking care of yourself. You haven't showered, and you're just sitting there reading. So this kind of distinction, I really just want to highlight, because it's not just doing something, it's doing something with a negative consequence, and you are not able to make it any different in terms of that outcome.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, when we first brought up this topic, one of my first questions was, is addiction a subjective kind of experience, meaning that you may think that you're not addicted? Again, we're talking about, let's say, more healthy examples of addiction. So for example, like going to the gym, or like you said, reading, or being even addicted to your work per se. And this is why I gave the definition of taking you away from the life that you know you should be living, and then asking you whether it's subjective or not. Because, for example, if I'm addicted to work, let's say, but I have the vision of like achieving something, then for you, it might look like an addiction, right? From your partner, and like, hey, you're addicted to your work. But for you, subjectively, you might be like, no, I'm just addicted to achieving my vision. So do you think addictions are subjective? Do you think, because most addictions, like we label, like you said at the beginning of this podcast, we label onto other people, right?
Right. Yeah. I think the real distinctive element is, does it create negative consequences for you?
Yes.
Let's just say like this. Yeah. For the most part, even if your partner is feeling like, hey, what, but is that just a conversation that happened? Or is that a place where your relationship is falling apart now and your partner feels like neglected and, that if you perceive that as a negative consequence for yourself, yes. But at the same time, we want to say, like, in addiction, we often try to blind ourselves from the negative consequences. So we will say like, oh no, that's because, so we need to also be aware and watchful for that. And that's why I think it's so important in community, in partnership, in men's group, women's group, so that we have reflection from our brothers, sisters, peers, comrades that say, hey, check this out. Like, your marriage is falling apart. Is that it? Is that true? Do you like that? Is that a good experience for you? And if it is, then why don't you just end it? Or what is that thing that's happening where you're holding on to this? And so I think it is subjective, and at the same time with this invitation for a wider perspective, so that you can still, it's always going to be up to you. If you decide you're not addicted, there's nothing ever that you can ever do about it or that it would need to change. But through this reflection, I think we can have a deeper insight into ourselves.
And we'll talk about like support groups and different ways that we can move through addictive personnel or addictions. So next question is, why do you think people become addicted in the first place?
Yeah, I think this is a space where I've been recently deep diving, going back even to my conversations when I was in psychotherapy training, speakers like Gabor Mate and Joe Dispenza, and really just kind of triangulating this. And there's really a powerful, famous TED Talk I remember seeing a couple of years ago. I don't know its title or anything, but it really just reframes addiction. And I want to offer this kind of conversation about addiction because it just feels so much truth and power in this. And it's essentially this: the story starts not now, but the story starts really in our childhood. If we have this idea of past lives, maybe there's also some of this karmic kind of influence. But this idea that as children, and we've kind of explored this many times in our episodes about like relationship and secure attachment, or even the styles of attachment. When we are children, we have this sense of expecting unconditional love because that's what reality is. And then there's these moments where we don't receive it, and then we don't receive it again. And this can be in the most innocent way from parents who deeply care, such as, for example, I'm not sure, Mike, if you ever heard about this, that there's these things called sleep training, for example, for children, sleep training and feeding schedule, where the baby is, and this is even presented by some of the most respected, popular top speakers in the parenting world. They say, don't feed your baby when it wants. Feed it on time. Feed it on your schedule. Decide when you want it. And so you have like this. Don't go get your baby when it cries at night. It should be sleeping. So you don't endorse it by keep going, and answering its cries. Instead, leave it there and let it cry it out, and it will stop. And it's true. It will stop. It will stop crying for food. It will stop crying for attention. But it's not because it got trained and it evolved. It's because it gave up. Because it gave up on love. It's like, and rather than experiencing that feeling, there's an adaptation that takes place. And that adaptation is self-soothing, is to fall asleep, is to ignore it, and so it goes away. And this becomes the genesis, really, of this uncomfortable feeling that I think many human beings have. And the uncomfortable feeling, we can name it something like feeling unworthy, not good enough, not enough, not being the good boy or good girl, because that is the natural kind of like, well, I'm not being answered. It must be that I'm not worthy. It must be that I'm not good because my mom's not coming to feed me. Nobody's coming to answer my cries. And that is the storm warning. I'm not sure if you're hearing that on. Yeah, it's saying evacuation. but thankfully not for my particular zone. So we got a little more time on this podcast before Hurricane Ian sweeps in.
Get it all out, Boris. Get it all out. We got to help some people before you die.
Okay. Here we go. So we're talking about this feeling, this foundation, and this foundation, since it starts so early on, we have this foundation as children, and it becomes ingrained in our identity. There is a deep sense of identity with this uncomfortable, suppressed emotional state of essentially being unloved, being separate, being unmet. And over our life, as we begin to mature a little bit, we have this experience where we are given an image, this sense that, hey, if you go to school, then you go to college and you get a job and you get a wife or a husband, and then you have your family, you will be free. You will actually be the good boy, the good girl. You will be rectified in all of those things, and you will be finally worthy. So just keep going. Keep doing what you're supposed to do. Keep answering those particular levels of demand, or get the right grades, etc. And so we're like, okay, we're gonna do it, and we start going along this journey, going. We got now the house, we got the partner, we got the job, and now still it starts to creep in again. Well, it's still uncomfortable. I'm still not free. I'm still feeling this. Oh, I know. And then there comes this moment, which is like that midlife crisis. I call it midlife crisis, where people start to just buy new sports cars, go on trips, have affairs, have new partners, gamble. They start to do different things to try to create new excitement in their life, join new social clubs, just reinvent. I'm going to reinvent myself. That's what's going to solve this. And on we go for a few more years, reinventing, trying to create a different life. But this feeling, we keep carrying it everywhere with us. And so the next step beyond this is now chemical addiction. It is now going towards a substance, because now all of these different things are not creating enough dopamine. And it's essentially dopamine that gives us this sense that we are no longer attached to that past experience. We are alive, we're curious, we're engaged with life. It's all exciting, bright colors, love it. And then as we continue to hit those dopamine receptors, they become less and less and less sensitive, and more is needed to create the same amount of stimulus. And so we have this experience of addiction where we need to either spend more money, or we need to have more dose of drugs, or we need to have more partners, or we need to, whatever it is, to create this stimulation of, and that allows us to not need to look at that one place where we must look if we are to be free. We've talked about this in all of our other episodes, this idea of sanskaras, this idea of these karmic knots of unprocessed emotional baggage, unprocessed, unfelt, unknown aspects of ourselves. And this is, I think, really why people are addicted. And this is why it is rampant in human beings, because human beings, for the most part, are taught that change happens from the outside. I don't feel good. Go outside yourself. Go get a new partner. Go get a new job. Go get, or try this pill. Try this. And we keep conditioning ourselves over and over and over again. Even as children, we've been conditioned this way. It's like, oh, you want the good grade? You do what I say. And it's always this outside chase. Oh, and so now when we think about how do I change this feeling, the conditioned body, the conditioned mind is telling us, go get it, put something in your mouth, go have a smoke, go create and change outside, and you will experience something. And because we remember that when we used to do this, something outside to change the way we feel, it did change it to some degree. And so we have this reinforced loop. That, I think, is the foundation of addiction in all areas and all levels of society, because none of us escaped this fate of essentially having our parents be less than God. And no parent could live up to God. And so we all start with this hole here of maybe I'm not okay. So yeah, that was a long one, but I feel like it kind of completed like that space that I really wanted to share.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I love the fact that you're talking about we're unable to sit with uncomfortable feelings as one of the main reasons for addiction. I would say it's two things. It's the feeling of not being able to sit with the present moment, which brings on two things, which is, yes, the uncomfortable feelings of what, like you're saying, it's the separation, the not feeling love again. So the separation of duality, as well as the imminent presence of death or time passing. And we spoke about this on not only our death podcast or our episode, but also on our patience episode. So I would say people are unable to consciously and skillfully handle the passing of time without filling it with other things. Because when you think of addiction's always in the doing state, right? You're doing something to fill. It's never in the being state. People are never really just feeling and being. So I like the fact that you brought that up as well.
So it's like it's the past in the present, right? That is the thing that people are unable to face or feel and not even have consciousness of what that is. So yeah, many people will just sit here in the present moment and be like, twiddling their thumbs, feeling uncomfortable. And they think they need to do something. They think they need to be productive. There's many stories that have nothing to do with that feeling because that feeling is blinded. There is no, so it's almost as if that as long as we have this adaptive mechanism that is driving our body to continue to move and do and partake in different things, we pacify this experience and we don't get to look there. And there just gives us some relief, gives us some sense of reprieve from this. And we like it. We will take it. Because what else do we have? We seem to not have any choice until such a choice is illuminated for us. But for the most part, I don't know about you, like nobody ever talked to me about feeling my feelings apart from stop it, right? Like apart from like, don't cry, don't yell, don't express, you're too loud. Like that is the childhood education in terms of how to feel feelings.
Mm-hmm. Like you're saying it, how do we handle that, like sitting there twiddling our thumbs, handling the passing of time? I think all addictions start off very, very innocent, right? It's like this thing that I'm doing out of this empty space is going to help my life in some way. It makes me feel good. So it's a very innocent kind of start. But how are you doing with the storm?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I was just trying to think about this. It's like what you're saying is it starts off innocent. And it's innocent, actually, I just want to really highlight this for all of us. It's innocent throughout. Because if you really just think about what does that like being, that innocent being, let's say like inside of me, inside of you, inside of this 70 and 80-year-old man and woman, it's this same little being who was rejected at some point in their cry out for love. All they want is to belong. All they're looking for is the same thing all of us are looking for: peace, joy, sense of purpose, sense of community and connection. That's it. And there's nothing there that's inhumane or to be looked down upon or any kind of thing like this at all, because we all are striving for that. In whatever dimension, some through work, through money, through spirituality, through meditation, we are all going for this one thing. And how can we blame somebody if they pick something up? It gives them this sense, oh, I belong, I'm at peace, I can have joy. There's no shame in this. This is the natural human impulse to seek for change and evolution, except that it got hijacked. It got hijacked in a way that it gives the illusion of change, the illusion of progress, illusion of freedom, but tick, 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 boom, and you're back down. And so this is why it's not functional or effective. We do want to support you, us, everybody in that liberation, but it's just that way it doesn't go anywhere. It's a dead end. It's a tricked out dead end, and that's the only problem.
That's beautiful. That was basically somewhat of the answer to my next question, which is something that I was thinking about is because we always try to ask, everything is divine. That's the way we like to see. This is why this is a quote unquote spiritual podcast. So do you think there's a divine purpose in addiction? And you did touch on it briefly. One thing I can think about is addictions are basically when you obsess about something, right? It's like an excessive amount of something. It's not balanced. So if there was a divine purpose, which again is hard to think of one when you think of addictions and all the pain it causes people, but obsessing about things allows for life to express extremes, right? So we get to see the extremes of certain things. For what purpose? It's like you said, it's that the ticking is that divine alarm clock that's about to wake up and say, or wake you up and say, hey, come back to balance. You've been going in extremes too much. But I think that is part of the beauty of life. You get people that obsess about certain things. Like if certain like painters didn't obsess about their art, and obviously that's a healthy maybe not so healthy, because a lot of these obsessive people, like even Steve Jobs was obsessive, right? You get to see the extremes and the beauty of life. So that would be my explanation for why, if I were to say, why it's divine.
Why divine? Yeah. I also want to draw here from the 12-step programs even, because one of the perspectives offered there is that somebody who's become addicted, the drunk, the addict to whatever, they have come closer actually to knowing God than somebody who has never actually admitted their addiction, has never even tried, and is in this space of like essentially superiority, moral superiority, some sense of spiritual superiority. Well, I don't do that. I've never done that. I've never had this drug or that drug or this or whatever. And this is nice. It's good. But at the same time, it's like you haven't even started. You don't realize how separate we are in our mind from God, from love, from truth. And so I think that what addiction is it's in a way, it's a sneak peek preview of approximating our natural state, approximating bliss, peace, oneness, non-resistance, compassion, openness, flow. Like these are qualities that emerge naturally as we ascend in consciousness. But I think what addiction give us is they're like, this, and then it closes. And then you're like, I can only get it through this portal. I have to go again. But the incredible inspiration that's available is also like, wait a second, there is a reality like this. It's in here, like it's doing something in here. The receptors are in me. That means that I can generate endogenously, not exogenously. Endogenously, I can generate the same chemicals through consciousness, through the body, through the, so I believe that another aspect to this question of, what is the divine purpose of addiction is to bring us closer to God. Not only through those peaks, but also through the valleys, the valleys where we crash so hard and it's so painful and we are destitute and we lose it all. And I think you and I have had many experiences, maybe not necessarily through this portal of addiction like this, but the crash and the incredible fierce grace and mercy that is part of that experience of waking back up and saying, wait a second, what have I made of my life? What have I made of this? And that, I believe, on both doors, God is knocking. So it is, I think it's very much part and parcel of our spiritual journey. And I think as we talk about, like how to transcend and walk through and overcome this, we're going to see that, in fact, the only way to go beyond our addictions is through some degree of enlightenment, some degree of self-mastery, some degree of ascending in consciousness. Well, this is grace. Somebody who's never had any kind of problem like this is sitting there twiddling their thumbs still. Somebody who's about to die off of heroin and watch their partners die on the couch next to them. This person has a reason, has an impetus, has something that's like, I need to do something different.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. I love that term, fierce grace. It's a very, very powerful way to define addiction and the reason it exists. So let's get a little bit more specific, and maybe we can just briefly touch on some of the most common forms of addiction in today's society. I can start. So when I was looking this up, actually, this is interesting. How to stop binge eating was actually searched for more than how to stop drinking. So again, different ways that people numb themselves out. So So eating is a form of addiction. Can you think of one? Maybe we'll just spitball back and forth.
Yeah, eating, smoking, watching things, right? Doesn't have to be only pornography, although that creates a big dopamine rush, which is exactly what the addict is looking for. Same thing with eating, same thing with smoking. It's like the state change, the novelty of the state changing sets off the dopamine release, hits your receptors, and you feel, boom, alive, boom, engaged, awareness opens. This is what most people want. And the only thing they want is they want to feel alive. They want to feel like they belong here. They're not like this, so we get a moment of that. What else?
Those are beautiful. Yeah. Like you're saying, watching things like even video games and movies. I just want to throw that in there. Other things people are addicted to are like money, which comes in the form of addiction to clout, which is a huge problem in today's society. The fact of power, like searching for power. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah, so like followers, likes, money. So the addiction to power or some sort of control. Those are other forms of addiction. Is there anything else that you can think of? I can think of some other ones as well.
Yeah, like then we have really literally like chemical addictions to all of the, heroin, cocaine, meth, like many of these intense ones, which really gives us a release from reality entirely. And then we have the more mild ones, like maybe cannabis and coffee, things like this that give us, again, like help us. I love actually what you said, because we haven't said that word before, but it's control. I think that the core of addiction is it enables us to have some sense of control over what otherwise feels completely out of control experience, because something in your body is feeling like crap and you can't do anything about it. And you don't know where it's coming from. It's unconscious. And so I think that addiction is another, thing to appreciate, is that we all want control, and everybody is grabbing for control in one way or another until we've given our will over to God. And that's all the addict also is doing, is simply seeking for a way to control their inner state, whether it's browsing on the phone or it's, smoking or consuming something or injecting something.
Yeah, those mild ones can be quite dangerous because, again, they're mild, right? So like coffee or cannabis, I'm sure a lot of people are addicted to cannabis nowadays as it's becoming legal. Because you don't know where it's not an extreme. So it's like slowly sapping away your mana and your willpower if you're unconsciously using it, right? Other forms of addiction are like procrastination. You're addicted to like literally just putting things off. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So that's a form of like numbing. Another one would be, this is an interesting one. People are addicted to their emotions or feelings. So
that's exactly it. I think that is like how we started this episode, really talking about there is something underneath. Now, we may say, well, isn't that just coming from childhood? Not like, even though it's unconscious, it is you who's holding and addicted to that identity. The identity of being unloved, that feeling that comes with it, all of that. This is, if in the end, we will find it was our own grasp, clutch on it that was keeping it in place. Nobody else is. There's no parents here. There is no preachers, teachers here. It's literally us. And that is the foundational and true addiction. And when we unlearn that emotion, when we say unclutch, okay, this hand too, eventually we release all of this tension, all of this energy that was used in identity with this particular childhood experience, and we liberate energy. Now we have energy available for creativity. Now we have energy available for just being engaged with life, for being connected to God, for being connected to the sense of belonging and oneness. So I think that this is really, really core, that the emotional addiction is the foundation of addiction. It is perhaps the only addiction that there is.
Yeah, it's crazy because most people are addicted to, or they can be either addicted to the bad quote unquote bad emotions and feelings, or they can be addicted to like something that gives them a high or a good feeling, right? What they don't understand is that, and this will be the next question, is like, let's talk about some of the ways that we can resolve addiction. It's like they don't realize that that thing outside of them can be generated from inside. That feeling, which again is the core of all addiction, can be generated inside. You don't have to smoke something to feel a certain way. You don't have to do something to generate that feeling. So what are some other ways that we can resolve addictions? I have a couple as well.
But this, I want to just carry off of what you were saying. I think is really powerful here. It's like we're talking about, it's like, yes, we're saying we have a desire for a good feeling. Let's generate it internally. This is okay. This is good. But this isn't the core of it. God isn't sitting here and saying, let me generate a good feeling. Jesus isn't doing that. Like no enlightened sage or mystic is doing this, because they all say one thing and one thing only, is that the kingdom of heaven is already at hand. It is here. It is now. Everything looks like a mess. It is all right. That peace that passes human understanding is present here now in our very consciousness, right? So the idea even to need to generate a positive feeling comes from the presumption, from the pre-given that we don't have it. And it's not naturally here. And what's naturally here is this doom, gloom, and pain and suffering of the human experience. And that is all happening inside of the dream. Okay. So we really like to really address, how do we wake up from addiction? It's not necessarily just teaching about, okay, well, you can get your own positive experience, like go for a jog or go for a meditation. That is, I think, another healthy pacifier to help to pacify this. But to really go beyond this state takes something else, not just to generate the positive feeling, but to face very deeply, right to the core, that terror that besieged probably us as a baby, the terror of being alone, never fed, never met, never loved. I did something wrong. I am wrong. Shame, guilt, fear, all of that lives right there at the core of our root, in our root chakra, in our belly. And unless that is unpacked, unwound, we are just plain, we're putting this like nice powdered sugar on top of this pile of shit. And we will never get it to taste good. It may look good for a moment. And that is, in fact, the other big part of addiction, is that we are always trying to look a particular way. We are projecting this image of ourselves, of how we are. We are okay. We got this. We figured it out. We got money. We got power. We got likes. It's all about this image of how we want to appear to the world, in contrast to this deeply uncomfortable feeling. That contrast, the bigger that gap is, the stronger the addiction is, the bigger the addiction is, because there is a big gap between who you really think you are, who you're projecting you are, and you are literally like, what kind of life is this? Think about how much energy you are spending pushing this one down, propping this one up. It is literally like that example of the beach balls, like big air-filled beach ball. You're trying to push it under the water, under the pool. You're holding it. Okay, it's good. It's good. I'm good. I don't have any. Boom. And it comes up, right? So that is essentially what's happening. And all of the energy that would otherwise go to our soul mission, so to our like expansive, beautiful vision that we're ordained to live out here, instead we are stuck in this dichotomy. So I really appreciate, that you bringing this up, and we can really explore that, that the foundation needs to be aired out. We cannot build upon a rotten foundation anything.
That's a very important point you said, because a lot of addiction therapy, quote unquote therapy, is basically like, it's asking like, how are you going to build good habits? How are you going to create good feelings? Like, what are you going to do with the extra time that you have not involved in this addiction? Yes. So the idea of like training your willpower, or this form of self-discipline to basically, I mean, that's one level. So we're not saying that this is bad, but this is not the highest form of retraining your neurochemistry or facing those feelings. So what are ways that people can rewire their neurochemistry or face those feelings?
Yes.
I think the first step is, like we said earlier, becoming aware.
I think that is what you are saying. That is the step two. Like, you do want to recreate your life. That is the whole purpose of us. We are exploring and discovering our creative potential as creators, not as victims. Victims trying to create don't create anything except more victimhood. So, because that is the foundation of that consciousness, it's going to see that space reflected everywhere, that quality. So what we really want to do is literally just sit. Like, everybody's like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I go and have like this ibogaine or ayahuasca ceremony or mushrooms? And yes, all of those things can help. But the foundation that they're going to lead you to is going to be right here in your chair, sitting right here like this. And the addiction is roaring inside of you. And it's like, I don't want to sit here. I want to go do this. I want to do something more productive. I want to, and then you start to think about other things to distract yourself, all the positive ones. And you're like, oh, okay. And what's happening is that this, I would really liken this to an experience of a wild horse, right? An untamed horse where it's never had a saddle on it. Try to sit down on that kind of horse and tell it to take you somewhere. It's not going to respond to you one bit. Not one bit. Is going to kick and it's going to do its own thing. It's going to be impatient with you. It's going to not be available for you because you are not its master. It is its own master. And likewise, we have here now with this body. This body has been conditioned through years, some of us many decades, of essentially uncomfortable feeling. Light goes on. Do something outside to change this feeling. And it's done over and over. And as soon as we do that something outside, guess what? The feeling changes. And because the feeling changes, it's a positive reinforcement. It's the habit building loop. You get the reward. It's just like dogs. Pavlov's dogs, the bell rings. Even the food is not there anymore. The reaction is still there. It's happening. It's happening. We've been conditioned just the same way. This body is that animal. But this body, because of our body-based identification, we think our identity has been as spirit, as consciousness, as this incredible universal being has been fully embodied, so to speak. Now the body has become spirit. The body has become our soul. The body has become the master. And now the body moves and we are just like, we have to accept it. We have to, we just seem to follow it. It seems to be whatever. It seems to be us. Nobody's saying my body is addicted. They're saying like, I want this. Why do you want it? Because I wanted my own choice, or whatever. No, it's not your choice. It's the choice of this conditioned nervous system to respond in this way. So the only thing foundationally that is going to break the addiction is that you sit here like this. You pick a moment, you pick your time. The addiction starts roaring, starts making you want to itch, to move, to go do something. And you say, stay here. Just like you would with a dog, just like you would with any other animal. And it's going to try to, it is going to tell you you're stupid. This is never going to work. You can't make it. And you're going to see all of those thoughts from the past. You're going to see all of this experience. But stay present, stay with it, stay witnessing this experience, because what's happening is that is the divulgence of that which we said is buried inside of you. It's coming up as what? As thoughts, as feelings, as sensations. That is the unwinding of the sanskaras. So you sit there and you say, I'm not going to move until I'm free of this addiction. Just like the Buddha said, essentially, I'm not going to move until I'm enlightened. But we're just saying, in this moment, you're not going to move until it is your own free conscious choice. You're not going to move because you feel like this thing to get away from an uncomfortable feeling. And that is the really good, clear definition. If you really want to be clear about it, conscious free choice is done not to avoid a feeling, right? Like, of course, if your house is on fire and you got to that's different. You're moving, but I'm talking about an emotional feeling. If you're driven by that feeling of fear, anxiety, lack, and you're making a move from there, you're taking action from there, that is us succumbing to the addiction and saying, okay, yeah. And it doesn't mean that every day and every moment you're fighting that thing. No, you pick your time for your battle. You start to train yourself in saying, body, I am now the mind. I am now the master. I am now the oversoul. You listen to me. And it's going to say, no, you listen to me, but you stay there until it, just like a horse, a wild horse gets broken in, its spirit gets broken, and now it surrenders to you. It surrenders to you as the master. And that is the only way that we will ever truly come out of addiction, is when our body admits and says, no, you are the master. No matter what I feel, no matter what's happening in here, I trust you. But because we have never really been here, the body has nobody to trust. The body doesn't really have a master apart from this like conditioned mind that has become the body. And so that space of presence, of now awareness, of witness consciousness, of being with, of observing, as not as this kind of thing that judges and observes, no, as this kind of thing that is lovingly here to bring this animal into safety, into calm, into a loving embrace. That's what I would say here.
That's beautiful. I think most people are going to have a challenging time with sitting and just being aware in those states. So I would say if we're going to move away from the highest level of understanding of how to resolve anxiety and then move into a more doing state, the best thing that I could think of is, yes, there's yoga, yes, but the key thing that you foundationally have to your existence is breath work. So I think one thing that I can recommend that would get you into these states of witnessing and becoming aware of all your feelings and your emotions is a good breathwork practice. So a practical piece of advice I can give the audience would be to just Google like your local breathwork practitioner, if there's one near you, and maybe just go try a session. It could be anywhere from like half an hour to sometimes they range into like the 3 hours.
Yes.
And through that breath practice, it will allow you to move through, change your neurochemistry, change your nervous system, maybe even after your breathwork practice, let's say a 3-hour breathwork practice, it will allow you to dive deep into those states where you can really penetrate those samskaras. That would be my number one tip is breathwork. Also, another one would be just like understanding that all addiction comes in the form of these fast hits of dopamine. Making you feel good. So just removing yourself from those dopamine inducing situations, like going camping. We talked about this earlier or in another podcast, or some sort of meditation retreat. But again, all these are forms of doing. You might need to do something before you can get in the states of just.
I love what you're saying. Like, we are not saying like, hey, this is it. And just, I'm really like, my consciousness about any kind of healing is, let's use every possible thing that we can to support, to create a congruent environment for us to awaken. And let's do it not with force, not with judgment, not with this imposition, but instead do it kindly, do it with a sense of like, I'm here, I'm awakening, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing, we're going to do this together. You hear me, body? I got you. We got to do this. And then you pick, maybe it starts with 5 minutes of sitting. Then you start to add a minute every day, a minute. And you're going to come to the place where it becomes uncomfortable and your body's like, abort, go with something. And you just say, okay, 1 more minute. I hear you. I'm not here to torture you. Just 1 more minute. And then we'll continue to expand our capacity. As contraction happens, we're going to continue to expand very gently, very gradually. Psychedelics have played a magnificent, powerful role in my life. Perhaps even in my addiction, because after my mom passed away when I was 18, I spiraled into such an intense experience of denying reality through drugs, partying, alcohol, whatever I could do to just numb the F out, okay? And it wasn't until I had my like heroic psychedelic mushroom journey that I saw a new perspective on myself, on life, on what really matters, on what's true. And that is why I also would say there's an amazing guy, if you Google him, if you Google maybe Oliver and mushrooms, or Oliver the Mushroom Man, or even on Facebook, does amazing experiences and can guide them. And in different countries, you can go on retreats. Highly recommend that. The other aspect is, of course, the more Peruvian approaches. So mushrooms come to us from primarily the Mexican culture. In Peru, we have ayahuasca, we have ibogaine. Ibogaine is also available in ibogaine centers for healing addiction, available in Mexico. All of these, and ketamine right here in Florida, ketamine treatments have been incredibly successful at helping people come off of addiction and have psychedelic experiences in a very controlled environment, very, very safe. Again, another incredible help, because the only thing that they do is they open up your perspective and you get to see something that you didn't see otherwise, which gives you even the hope, but like the impetus, the inspiration, the faith, the knowing that there is something higher available. It is already with you. It has chosen you. It's here. And you start to reach to it now. You start to say, okay, I will rise. I'm ready. I want to. But because when you don't see that possibility, where all you see is darkness and more darkness, and if you move this one away, it's more darkness, that's where it's very hard to make the choice to rise up, to come out of apathy, to come out of that stuckness. But having previewed freedom in this way, in a powerful way that not just allows you to keep your ego intact, because there are many drugs that allow you to keep your ego intact and just pacify the bad feeling. Heroic doses of psychedelics do not allow you this opportunity. They strip you of all control, and you find that you never needed it. And so that helps you to release this addiction, release this, surrender more, open more, make yourself available to life. And so I fully support breathwork, psychedelics, meditation, exercise, more mild forms of addiction, whatever you have to do to get like 1% better, one little, even fraction of a percent, go for that. That is the path. The path is not this hard cut, like judgmental thing that comes to us from judgment on addiction. And that judgment can only arise from people who are actually already addicted, and they don't see themselves that way. And so they only see this out there, this particular form. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up psychedelics, but I also do want to caution people. The reason that I didn't bring it up and I brought up breathwork instead is because a lot of people can also get addicted to psychedelics. And one of the main reasons for psychedelics, like you said, it should be a preview into that ultimate freedom and not something that you're consistently doing. The reason I see even psychedelics turn into bad habits and addictions is because people are unable to do what? Unable to surrender. So it's important, if you do find a psychedelic practitioner that can guide you, you want to find one that is not continually asking you to come to the next retreat every single month or even every single year, but that they can guide you into that space of surrender so that you can preview that ultimate freedom, knowing that that is already within you. The goal is to step outside your perspective so that you can become aware of all your addictive personality or your habits, and then come back to the breath, because the breath is able to do this naturally.
Yes.
And put you into those states of surrender if you go hard enough, because you've seen this too. It's like people take little doses of mushrooms. Yeah, they have a great time, but they're unable to really just surrender and have that ultimate breakthrough, which is what's needed for this. So
yes. Yeah, I'm not just saying like microdose and little, and microdose has got its own thing. I'm curious, I don't know that depth, but I hear so many testimonials, people coming out of addiction, things like this. I don't know if it gets to the root and the heart of the matter, but a heroic dose in which you lose ego control and you feel like you're going to die, that is getting closer to the heart of the matter. And you will not be addicted to that experience, because it is literally a hero's journey. It's like literally going to slay the dragon, and you are without any control. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it is transformational to the core, because a part of you really does die. A part of you, like, you see through it and you emerge a different perspective, a different personality. It slightly is altered. And so it gives you an opportunity to make new choices.
Nice. I just want to say one last thing before we dive into the last question, which is, I think I just want to throw free will back into this, the importance of free will, because whenever you have addictions, you seem to do these habits that you might be thinking are beneficial to your life. For example, you're watching a movie, you're like, oh, this is enjoyable. And then you become addicted to watching Netflix, or you do some sort of drug and you think that this is good, but you are sapping your mana or your spiritual power, like you had mentioned. Even though it feels good, you are slowly draining yourself. And unless you have that ability to step back, and breathe and make like literally a free choice in the infinite possibilities in this moment, you will not live a fulfilling life. I can guarantee that. So check out our episode on fate versus free will if you want to check that out. And then I can ask the last question, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to touch in on this bit that you're sharing. It's what I really want to highlight is don't be hard on yourself. This is the last thing that will be helpful to you. You may beat yourself up into not smoking or not touching your addiction. That is not healing. It will not free you. So it is another dead end road. So it's really important that we engage this whole process with compassion. Like only in the presence of compassion can that inner child space really open up. Can you imagine any inner child that's going to open up? Like imagine that we have a child sitting right here and you want them to open up about what's upsetting for them. And you're like, open up, or you're not going to get to eat today, or you're not going to, and it's just like, really? Like, is that going to work? Is that going to be the therapeutic release? No, it's not. And so we don't be this way to ourselves either. So if you have a moment where you're like, I know I'm trying not to smoke, but fuck it, I want to smoke right now. And you are fighting inside yourself and you have this turmoil. Okay, try to sit. And if you can't, you maybe say, okay, I'll give myself 5 minutes to sit through this. Okay, great. 5 minutes of training, then go and have your smoke. Go and do it. And say, okay, this time I push the envelope a little bit further. I am more awake. I'm doing now this more consciously. I'm going to bring one more thing here. That is a very important point. But another aspect to this, and this, I don't have a great sense of resonance always with Osho, but I learned this from Osho, and it has been the truest thing I've ever come across. And it's this, that any addiction that into which you infuse awareness, into which you fully be conscious and present for, that addiction, it will either change, transform into something else, or it will dissolve. It will have its natural autocorrect. And all you really have to do is be super present for it. So those times when you say, okay, you know what, I'm going for it, you take that joint, cigarette, needle, whatever you are doing, and a drink, and you be super present for it as if it's your meditation. And you take that sip and you feel the stinging of the alcohol, or you take that smoke, you feel and taste the smoke in your mouth, you feel it hit the back of your throat. All of this is super important. And if you just stay here, play by play, moment by moment, scene by scene, infusing the light of awareness, not judgment, awareness into this moment, into what you are doing, that is all I want you to do. That is all that's actually required. Your intention plus your awareness in time, without effort, without fighting, without judgment, this is going to change. This is going to move, because awareness does always this, which is that it always reinforces whatever is life affirming, and whatever isn't always falls away. Just like imagine that you were not aware, you had your hand on the stove and you're like, awareness will do that for you automatically. You don't have to do a single thing. So anything that is not supportive of life will fall away, but just stay present, stay aware. Yeah.
I think that's super important what you said, and also very practical for our audience out there. If you notice you have a form of addiction, and we all have forms of addiction, so I think everybody listening to this will be able to take something. And again, we can go with a mild form of like numbing out with Netflix or scrolling on your phone. Take that 5 minutes. Everybody can do this. Take that 1 minute and just sit and don't do anything. And from there, you will experience that short, brief moment of experiencing what I mentioned earlier, which is that free will. You will notice that that will become more prevalent in your fullness and your joy and what you actually want, which is not the thing that you're going to about to do, which is that freedom of self, which is that free will. So yeah, just 1 minute, 5 minutes, delay that dopamine hit and see how that changes things. Let's end on this. So I don't know if you have any like personal relationships with somebody that's addicted to something that is maybe harming them, or let's move to something a little bit more harsh, not a mild form of addiction. What would you say to this person that is currently experiencing this and is unable to maybe sit or doesn't know that they're even addicted to this. I don't know if you have any personal experiences that you want to draw from. Might be powerful.
I certainly do. I don't want to mention any context, just for the privacy of the persons, but I would say that everybody who's addicted to something harsh, they are aware. They are aware that they are addicted. So the important thing, I think, number one is we have to move from the judgment model to a compassion model. You cannot grow, you cannot heal, you cannot be free until we make this one move, because the judgment model is everywhere. It's in society. It's very easy. It's in your parents, right? It's in your, at least it's in your inner parents, those inner id voices. They are going to talk to you with judgment. And you have to begin to just say, actually, this is okay. Number one in this whole game is let's make addiction fully okay. It is already here. It has a purpose. It's part of my life. If it's here for me, it must be something that I can move through. It must be something that is on the way, not in the way. And I'm available for this. This is my journey. This is my path to enlightenment. This is my path to transformation, to happiness. It's through this. Right? I remember this Winston Churchill quote of like, if you're in hell, what to do? Keep going. Keep going through. Keep going through. Don't stop in hell. Right? So let's take that off, that label that is something bad. Let's say that this is your ordained spiritual path. You are here for a reason. Let's do this together. And of course, what helps that is to connect with other people that are tapping into this wavelength of healing, and also understand and see and have compassion, and then begin to really, one of the ways that we can begin to do this is just have compassionate inquiry into yourself. Gabor Mate is a great example of this. You can look him up on YouTube and see how he does it, but it's essentially just listening to yourself. Like a feeling comes up, like this thing, and you're like, and you just say, okay, so if this feeling had a voice, what would it say? Okay, and you just hear it, and it's I'm not loved, I don't have enough, whatever it's saying. Okay, yeah, I hear you. You are in essence, I would say this whole top part is just reparenting yourself with compassion, bringing that inner compassion to the forefront. It's okay, I got you. Is this feeling familiar to me? Have I felt this before? Yeah, I have. When's the first time I remember? Oh my God. And it's like when I was whatever. And in this way, we are starting to connect with this voice. Imagine that this voice, again, like in our emotional intelligence episode, this voice is a little child. Don't smack it. Don't shut it up. Don't send it back. Hold it. Hear it. Like say, I got you. You can cry in my arms. I got you. It's okay. So we are changing the context. We are saying, okay, this belongs. This is also part of the journey. And let me be compassionate with myself in it. And then it's really about reaching out and making a decision. I think the first step has to be a decision where you say, unequivocally, I say, I want something different. Like I am deciding with God, with my soul, that I am ready to break this contract with addiction, this contract with pushing this down, never looking at it. It is now null and void. And I am breaking this contract. It's over. It's over. I'm ripping it up. Whatever I signed up for, I'm done with it now. And I'm making a new decision. And this new decision is that I am going to use this opportunity to awaken to my highest potential, to the most beautiful life of which I am capable of which I am here to share, to express, to paint into this world. So we have this kind of step now coming where we're making a decision and we're saying yes. And if you want, you got Jesus, hold Jesus' hand, hold the Holy Spirit's hand, hold Krishna, hold Buddha, whatever it is, you say, help me. Whoever is, whatever is the higher power, ask it. Say, okay, I am ready to make this change, this decision. This decision is happening now. This September 27th, 4:49 p.m. is the time where my life turns around. This is a turning point for me. And we can do this here now together, right? So this is the moment where you can make this choice. This choice, now you've set a new level of integrity for yourself. And you say, I'm not going to beat myself up because I already know from my step one that it's no need, no use. I made this choice. Now I'm going to gradually move towards it. And the only two things that I would say to you, and of course, use all of the plethora of options available to you that we covered. Meditation, breath work. If you want to work with a specific psychedelic practitioner that's specifically helping you to overcome addictions and is aware that you are addicted and that's what your goal is, beautiful, whatever that is. But the foundational two aspects that you practice every day in your life is this. Impulse comes, you take, like what Mike and I were saying, you take that 1 to 5 minutes. You can go much longer, of course, because that will be the training, but you just start very gently. Maybe start with 1 minute. And then I would also encourage you, have a practice somewhere in your day, at least once a day, where you are literally just sitting down and you're saying, okay, today I'm starting with 1 minute. This is apart from those ones where you feel the impulse to do something. Okay, so I'm sitting down, I'm going to start with 1 minute a day, then 2, then 3, then 4, and just do this. Keep adding 1 minute a day where you sit your body down and you say, body, for this time, we're just going to be here still with our eyes closed and relaxed. That's all we're doing. It's safe for you. It's safe for me. Let's do this. And then it's going to start to buck. You just hold it out. You weather it out for those few minutes. Okay, that's a practice. That's a staple. And now, whenever you actually have the impulse to work with your addiction, to work it, to have it, to take the drug, the drink, the porn, the whatever it is that you have going on, which is all okay. You just take that 1 minute. You say, okay, I'm going to have a minute of freedom, a minute of practice before I go in. Minute passes. Great. Reward yourself with the thing, but do it like this. As you bring it to your lips, feel it. Feel the glass against your lips. Feel the soft texture of the smoke. Feel how it, smell it. Engage your senses fully. Be super conscious. Say to yourself, if I'm here to enjoy this particular thing, let me enjoy it with all my soul. Let me enjoy it wholly and fully with my entire body, all my senses. Light up. Turn up the wick of awareness. Let's have this. Do it this way. And I would say that if you just practice this recipe, it will be a transformational journey for you. Even if you are not even addicted, this is a transformational journey. This is the very work of our soul journey, is to take our power back from the matrix to which we have surrendered. For a moment, feel masterful and creator. And then eventually you give it back to God. And then it's far beyond being a master, because you are now all that is, and all that is works and moves through you.
Woo! Damn, that's beautiful, Boris. That's amazing. I think our audience will find a lot of nuggets in that. I think that was a very comprehensive guide. I think the hardest parts in that will be removing outside voices, especially from those that you love, which are typically judging you. And they could be your own inner voices as well. And then step 2 is the hardest one, which is making that choice of breaking that contract that you have. So all the other tips, very amazing. But again, this comes down to you and only you to make that decision. So amazing, Boris. Thank you so much. Fucking beautiful. I hope you guys enjoyed that. And we will say goodbye until next time. God bless. Take care. See you guys soon.
Thank you. Cheering you on in your transformation, right? We're doing it here together. If you enjoyed this, hit like on this video, share it with somebody we feel can benefit from it. Drop a comment, see if there's any way that, we can support you. If there's anything that hasn't been shared here, that's a big burning question in addiction. Love to hear from you. So until next time, we bless you. We're with you. We're cheering you on. We're doing this together. Let's rock on.
Beautiful.
Namaste.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.